Fishing like a local isn't just about catching fish. It's about connecting with the environment and the people who call it home. It's about hearing the stories and traditions that have been passed down for generations and sharing unforgettable moments with the people you meet along the way. Fishing like a local is having an experience that stays with you forever. And with Fishing Booker, you can experience it too, no matter where you are. Discover your next adventure on Fishing Booker.
The 1911 is one of the most iconic firearms in history. Designed by John Browning, the 1911 was the standard issue sidearm of the U.S. military from 1911 to 1985. While Colt produced the original, almost every major firearm company has produced its own version. It's wildly revered for its reliability, crisp trigger, and is still a favorite for all types of shooters. Whether you're looking to buy or build a 1911 and just about everything for guns, log on to midwayusa.com.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening to the Western Hunting Hub podcast. Marty, thanks for joining us. We've got some broadhead tuning, some elk stories, and whatever else we come up with laughing about, because it's already gone from beards and shooting to broadheads to whatever else. So thanks for jumping on the podcast. Appreciate your time, and if you wouldn't mind, introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Marty Smith. I do a lot of filming for all kinds of different companies. I've had a background in that since I was a kid, and then always grew up hunting, whether it was waterfowl, deer, elk, didn't matter. But then got into archery, met up with Bill from Iron Will Outfitters, and currently have a job position there. And it's amazing the amount of information that I've learned in the last couple years. Like I want to say 6 years from just the knowledge that Bill has shared, and now I get to work alongside of him. And yeah, his tuning methods can't beat them. So
yeah, that and the research driven stuff is outstanding. Instead of, I don't know what other companies do. I'm sure they've got their tests. They do tests, but from what I hear and see, and from what Iron Will does is putting things with an engineer's mind, and to do actual tests, and to put the physics to it, and kind of work through that to create the product. Seems like a lot of the archery world has been trial and error. Oh, let's try this, see what happens. Try this, see what happens. And there's a lot of variables we can't control. Hitting ribs and branches and all the things that make hunting, but to test and remove some of those variables of wind and what it can do to an arrow are pretty outstanding. So I'm glad we got someone smarter than Mark and I here to put that together, so we can be successful hunters. So I've definitely taken some of that knowledge and applied it. So it's pretty neat. So cool to see what you guys got going on there. Yeah, it's I'm sure the growth has been pretty substantial over the last 6 years with Iron Will, for sure.
Totally. Yeah. like I said, it's an honor to be able to, work alongside that guy and just soak up his knowledge, and, just be able to basically live the dream in the archery community,
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's if you want to talk real science and nerd stuff, I think Bill would be your guy to have on here.
Yeah.
But from my understanding and where I came from as an archer and shooting his broadheads before I even worked for Bill, I literally missed my target, man, hit the dirt, pulled that thing out of the dirt, and shaved hair with the broadhead immediately. And after that, I was sold, and now I own a lot of them. Lots of them. But as far as his tuning method and everything goes, you were talking, Clint, about bear shaft tuning. And a lot of people say, I'm going to shoot, a field point and a broadhead and then kind of move them together. Well, the amount of times that I've seen a field point impact the back, or, broadhead impact the field point, with an iron will is astronomical. So don't shoot groups with iron will broadheads. I've learned that lesson myself.
Mhm.
But I'll start at like 10 yards, dude, and I'll have a fletch shaft and a bear shaft, and making sure that my bear shaft is impacting the target straight. It's not crooked, left, right. I'll start there. And then you can Robin Hood at that distance pretty easily. So once you aim at a different point, if you can, just making sure your bear shaft isn't crooked, up, down, left, right, or anything, I'll step back to 20 yards. And then that's where I'll actually shoot them side by side, fletched and bear shaft, and making sure that that bear shaft is coming perfectly straight out of my bow. You'll see if you have any torque or any like beard issues that Mark may have. when you pull into your anchor, if you have any variability in your shot, you're punching it or you're torquing or whatever, you'll kind of see it. But as long as that's like your bear shaft is going straight into the target, it's close to your fletched arrow, that's when I can literally put on a broadhead and go out to like 80 yards and send it. And I shot broadheads right when I first got my bow this year. And that was the Matthews Lift was the easiest bow I've ever tuned. I bear shot out to 50 yards. And dude, I put a iron will single bevel on that thing and send it out to 110, and it hit a 365 target, like the center one. I think it was like 8 inches, and was like, okay, I'm gonna walk away from that.
Good to
And
go.
I haven't shot broadhead since.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah, I did notice. I went to the bow shop the other day because I was like, well, I'm shooting my broadheads, and I got little like a ways off, and then I throw one that's a ways to the left and 3 inches high. I'm like, what the heck is going on? None of that should not be that far. And they finally found an issue with on um which is I guess somewhat common on some Hoyt bows, is that the right next to the cam there's that little spacer in there, and on Hoyt bows they're seeing some of that give. And my bow's not, it's a year old, and there's just a little bit of give. Then I don't know how I didn't see that with my field points, but I guess it was forgiving enough. It wasn't a problem. But it showed up with broadheads. And so as soon as we started putting spacers in there, and I got to get the right shim yet still, they ordered it for me, but uh things tightened up. It's like, okay, thank goodness. It's like it's like I was a worse shot. It's like I don't understand this. I can group these, say my field points, and then you go throw on this, and it just exemplifies all the issues of broadheads. It's like I'm not a bow tech. I don't fully understand even adding shims. That's why I go to a bow shop. Adding shims, like how did you know I was gonna aim to the left? And you added just a few in there, and you're like, I think you're gonna be a little closer. Why did you add to that side? How did you do? I don't know. So I'm so reliant on those bow shops to make sure your bow's set up first, right? Your good timing, all of those things. Um, have you seen any issues in the past with just setup first before going to um getting the right arrow to fly right? I mean, that's probably number one issue right there.
Huge. Because I mean, dude, like you said, timing, cams, everything. You could have contact. Your arrow, your drop away rest could be bouncing back up and hitting your fletchings. You could have so many issues, dude. Knock pinch, bad knock fit. Your D loop could be wrong. There's so many things. And that was like with the Hoyts. I had friends that I shot indoor leagues with, dude, and they were breaking them. Like they put some gas strings on there, and those things run pretty hot. And my homie was cracking the spacers, and I was like, dude, shouldn't they do like a galvanized or some sort of, not galvanized, but like some sort of steel or hardened material to like in their spacers to where you're not getting that cracking? But then again, would it crack a limb? But those bows, the Hoyt bows, they're awesome. They're super fast. Like you can't go wrong with a new bow this day and age. But
Right.
there's always going to be issues, man. There's always lemons. Like it happens. And that's the same thing, like arrows, right? You could have an arrow that's, 0.003 straightness, and that 0.003 straightness could have wobble on both ends. So when people say, oh, you got to cut it, you got to spin it, and you got to cut this side of the arrow or that side of the arrow, like that's why it sucks, but it costs a lot to be like, hey man, I'm going to buy the straightest arrow I can get. I'm going to buy the best components that I can get, so you have concentricity, so your arrow is spinning perfectly true. And then you go into a fletching, where a fletching will actually help take out some of those imperfections by like re-steering or help steer the arrow, which is huge. Like with the studies that Bill's done, you basically have a bow that's shooting out of tune. And that's where those fletchings, we're testing those fletchings to make sure that, like, okay, even a bow that's out of tune, how much steering is this fletching gonna give? And that's like, that was the hugest, like one of the coolest things that I've seen from some of his stuff that he's done.
Yeah, I took away from the things I've heard Bill talk about is the, and I don't notice it with my field points. Like my 3D setup is like I'll grab whatever arrow. Yeah. And as long as it's the same, whatever arrow with, or the same arrow with whatever fletchings, until I get some distance on it, it doesn't matter to 50, 60. I've got these little smaller ones on there, and I went to the bigger AAE, whatever. It didn't matter. There, for the most part, I was hitting the same little spot, and it was good enough it couldn't outperform me. Like or it was outperforming me. I couldn't shoot any better to show the issues. But as soon as you started doing broadheads, and last summer I did a ton of broadhead testing, again, it brings out those issues. So getting those right components, and since we've jumped right into it, I want to hear what's your method? How are you going from and I know you haven't shot broadheads because things have been good. You did, yeah, 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 but you did it once, and you got it set perfectly. So what are some of those things that the average dummy like myself can be doing to figure that out and to troubleshoot, or to how should we be approaching our practice? I got 1,000 questions on how we could start this.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna learn to set up your own bow and everything, like, which I highly recommend to do, because then you're going to be able to understand how to like fix an issue, right? So if you're in the field and something goes wrong, you need D-loop material, you need serving. Like, I had a string pop off a bow last year, and literally going in on a bull, pine tree wrapped underneath the string, popped it right off. And my buddy was like, that wasn't a good sound. 32-inch axle to axle bow turned into 37 inches. So couldn't get it back together in the field, had to go get a press and literally reset everything, like from knocking points to D-loop to everything, and bare shafted. So starting off, basically you want to make sure, read the bow specs. What are your bow specs? Like, there's so much information that the bow companies will put out there now, whether, like, look at the field archers. You have so many guys saying, oh, well, this bow prefers knock high at this, or, depending on where the burger button is or burger hole is and stuff. Anyways, for me, I go burger hole. I'll put my bow string is perfectly level vertically. Left and right is completely level. I'll put my rest all the way up. I use a Hamskea, which is the best rest. Having that up all the way with your arrow on it at 90 degrees, I'll put a mark, like a little Sharpie, and then be like, okay, that's my starting knock point. I'll tie in the knock stay. I'll slide the knock up, make sure that's good. Tie another stay on there, make sure I have a little wiggle room in my knock, not a lot, but like just enough to where your knock it's moving. Because when you go to full draw, your string angle is going to pinch down on your knock. And if you have that, I've literally noticed so much variable in that without having like a tiny little bit of wiggle room. It seems weird to have any room, but it makes a huge difference. So then I do that, tie in both knock stays, Then I set my D loop, and my D loop, I shoot a thumb button, so I'm pretty uh like particular on how long my D loop is. So I'll measure that, and if it's not right, I'll cut it off and put a new one on. As much as that sucks and wasting material, but when you have a thumb button, you're twisting your string. So at full draw, I'll pull back my bow and look down my string to see if I'm actually manipulating it. Because if you have, say, 85% let off or like 90% let off, you're going to see that string move with your nose. You're going to see it move super easy. So you want to look for any of those imperfections, like mark with your beard. If your beard is touching your string and you have 85% let off, dude, you'll see that string move over. And then after that, I'll have a bare shaft, fletched arrow. I'll shoot those to 10 yards and go from there. And with that Matthews, I couldn't believe it, man. Like I had 10 shots through the bow, like sighted it in, of course, a little bit at 20. And at 40 yards, I Robin Hooded a freaking bear shaft. Like 10 shots.
So, Marty, I got a question for you, and this is really a one-off. I have a buddy of mine that has a V3X, and about every dozen to 2 dozen shots, we've looked this bow over time and time again, cannot figure it out. He goes so hard left, like I'm talking 40 yards high, 70 yards left. No idea. Cannot figure it out. Have you ever heard of or seen anything like that?
No, I've only heard of like a crossbow doing that and having it like pulled back for like a day.
We thought that, maybe his rest, something was going on with his rest or something, or, he wasn't getting the arrow knocked in there. No idea, but it's consistent. We've watched him time and time again. Cannot figure it out. We have it video recorded and can't even see anything on it.
So is it the same arrow that's doing this?
We don't know. I don't think it's the same one, but he's shooting them multiple times. So the same arrow does. No, it's not, because we never find the arrows.
Oh shit! Yeah. See ya.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exit conversation.
That's expensive. That gets really expensive. Yeah. I would probably, dude, I would start with new strings, honestly. Like, but that doesn't solve every 12. But I would just be like, all right, cool. I'm gonna put new strings on this bow and go from there. Like, make sure your limbs are good and they're not cracked. Check your rest. Like, what kind of rest does he have?
I couldn't tell you. I think it's a QAD, if I'm not mistaken.
Dude, you know what it could be? It's not dropping away.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we had somebody at this archery tournament this last weekend. I heard it go down, and you're like, what was that noise? And it's like that you hear the fletchings go right through. You're like, dude, what was that? That didn't seem right. And the arrow went off to the abyss. But that's sometimes the I think it's the bearings or the spring or however the mechanisms in that can lock up. I had one fail on me, so it could be that.
Sorry about taking up the selfish time here.
No, you're good.
Idea on
that's why I like love helping people with this stuff, because I ran into every single problem like that myself, and like learning how to do your own, like get your own bow press, like tying your own peep, serving everything. Like then you can really figure out what's going wrong, and you'll find a lot of mistakes in yourself as well. Like that was my biggest flaw of like seeing like how the dumb, like, oh yeah, well, if I raise my peep height a little bit higher, I can shoot further. And then you run into all these bad habits where your anchor points below your jaw at your neck and like all these dumb things just to shoot further.
Yeah.
So don't do that.
So after we got the bow set up and we're familiar with some of those things, and there's a lot more to that, but we're like 4 weeks away from archery elk season. So Too
Yeah.
late. Take it to a bow shop. we need we need to get going with some other thing. We need to be shooting broadheads. We need to be doing stuff. With your process of shooting bear shafts, are you
Yep.
adding any fletching weight to that? Because I had heard
Yep.
Bill mention just adds like tape or something to get the
Yeah,
amount of weight or
yeah, so like that it's not duct tape. It's like the that metal duct tape for like say ventilation or like air ducts.
Mhm.
The
It's
chrome stuff.
exactly, it's like an aluminum kind of tape. So basically I'll have a scale. I'll be like, okay, cool, my arrow weighs 485 grains and I will weigh that and then I'll put a bear shaft on there with no fletchings and weigh that. And be like, okay, I need to add, 13 grains, and then I'll wrap the aluminum or tape around there. I usually go a little bit excessive, just then I can take away wraps. Then it's easier than to add, and then I'll just get those exact, and I'll measure from where the fletchings are to the nock, and then that's where I'll put the tape as well, just so my front of center is fairly spot on. It doesn't have to be super exact, but as long as those weights are pretty well balanced, you shouldn't see a problem. And I've done it before without the tape. It made a little bit of a difference, but not that much. I mean, when you're talking like, 25 grains of weight, you're going to see a big difference. If you're talking like, 15 grains, you're going to see some difference, but it's better to do it than not to do it.
yeah. So when you've got that arrow, that bear shaft ready to go, you got your proper components and broadhead set up ready to go. Um, not discussing front of center right now or any of that arrow build stuff. Different conversation,
Yeah.
longer conversation. Uh, you've got that purchased, set up, ready to roll, and you're starting at 10 yards with that bear shaft. That was your plan. Okay. Start at that with the bear shaft. And then are you shooting field point? That's the sequence from there.
Yeah, I'll shoot. Honestly, at 10 yards, I'll shoot bear shaft first, make sure it's impacting perfectly straight into the target. And then where I'm aiming, I'm be like, great, cool. Step back to 20. Then I'll shoot bear shaft and field point, and I'll group those together at the same point, and just making sure that they're close. Like, just be careful because you Robin Hooded at 40 yards with a bear shaft. If you can super tune like a Hamsky, you get one click moves a micro. So once you have that at 10, move to 20, shoot your fletched arrow or your bear shaft, depending on what you want to see out of it. There's no preference. I usually shoot bear shaft first because then if I do make a bad shot, because there is human error in this, I'll pull the bear shaft, go back and be like, okay, get your stuff together. Like, come on, like put your big boy pants on and, don't punch the daylights out of it, and actually make a good shot and be real with yourself that you are having a good day. You're shooting properly. Your form is good. And once I have that bear shaft going perfectly straight with my fletched arrow at 20, I'll move back to 30. If I have a little bit of a difference at 30, it's usually human error, or 40. You can be honest with yourself. We all make mistakes. But at that point, man, I'll take a broadhead, put the broadhead on there, and step back to 50 and send it.
Yeah.
I don't shoot broadheads very close unless they're animals.
Sure. And when you're adjusting, messing with a rest has a different level of anxiety for me than messing with a sight, because I know I've got my 13/16, my center shot is my starting point on my rest. And that's always kind of the gold standard, right? We start at 13/16 and you move from there. Or I want you to hear I want to hear your opinion on that. But like that's where we start. And what do you mean move those arrows closer together? We need a little bit more to explain sight movement, rest movement, and those things.
Yeah, I try not to move my sight that much, like unless I really need to and I know I'm off. But you'll read every bow inspection of like, yeah, 13 16ths, but whether you're shifting your cams or anything like that, there is some lenience where you can move your rest just a little bit. At least I have found that. Some people would be like, no, you're wrong. But if I can shoot a bear shaft to 50 yards and hit right next to my fletched arrow, and moving my arrow rest is going to do that or help me do that, I'm doing it. I don't think there's one solution that end all be all, just like elk calling, just like anything else. There are ways to make things work. And by moving your rest just a little bit, whether you're knock left and moving your arrow rest to the right or vice versa, that's where you're going to see a difference. And write it down. When you move your rest, you're started at 13 16 dead nuts, and you're like, okay, cool. I'm a little off this side. Okay, I'm going to move it one click. Dude, make a note, write that down and shoot it. Don't shoot it once, shoot it a couple times. Make sure you're, like I said, be honest with yourself. Make sure you're making a good shot and following through and not torquing the bow or anything. Consistency. And then if that doesn't work, maybe, and you get more of a tail kick or whatever, move it back the other way a little bit. And honestly, it's the best to figure it out yourself. No go like some bow shops, oh yeah, I paper tuned your bow, you're good. It's like, well, that's not you shooting it. That's not your grip. That's not your hand. Some people have tiny little hands and they go and shoot a bow and it's like, yeah, that was neat. And then you get a gorilla hand on there, or you're too heel, like so many things. But yes, move your rest a little bit. It's okay. People tell you no, they can yell at me for it, but if you can bear shaft to 50 yards, dude, I'm doing it.
I noticed that at our bow shop, we've got an outstanding bow shop right here at the Black Hills that always makes the top 10 Matthews dealer bow shop. They work on Lee and Tiffany's bow, and I walked in there and David Blanton from Real Trees in there. He's like, "Yeah, I come up from Georgia. Only this guy touches my bow." And the unfortunately, I don't get that guy, the bow shop owner, to work on my bow because he's 5'6", but there's another 6'5" guy in there that is close to my height, and he's working on my bow, and he was paper tuning, and he's like, "Okay, and then I need you to shoot it," and he would be bullet hole in it, and then I'd go and I would have a high left tear, and like, and I was almost had a little self-conscious, like, oh, am I doing something wrong there? No, it's okay. It's just I'm different. Even from a guy that's built very similarly, I consistently had a different tear than he did. And he was working off of what I was giving him. So that was interesting to learn.
Well, I mean, in arrow spine, like, dude, like I said, do you get Bill to talk about this stuff is the most, I love it because it's beyond my knowledge base. But properly spined, having a properly spined arrow, or if you pull that much harder into your back wall than this guy tuning your bow, that makes a difference too. So it's awesome that he had you do that. Not too many bow shops will allow the persons that owns the bow to be shooting through paper. They're like, no, we've had too many people shoot through the wall or something. It's I didn't have bow shops like that, so I learned it all myself.
Yeah. Yeah. They was like, oh yeah, come back behind the counter here. We're gonna work on this. You got time? Oh yeah, I got time. I'll make time.
That's awesome. Do they allow you to shoot broadheads at their shop too?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
They said, hey, do you got a target, a broadhead target? Because they don't want to have one set up there for that, but it's like, yeah, I got one in the truck, brought it in, and we were shooting broadheads in their indoor range there.
What's
So
the name of the shop? What's the name of it?
Black Hills Archery.
Okay, people,
Crap.
you should
Yeah.
probably go there.
They probably should. They probably
Anybody going there? That's a good shop.
Yeah, yeah. And Al Kraus is the owner. He is the kindest individual ever. He runs just the most successful 4-H kids archery program and is super involved. One stellar guy. Stellar. very, very cool guy. So good shout out for them, because they're he's successful in what he does, and there's a reason for it. It's pretty cool to have those bow shops. I know they're one in a million, and you walk into any bow shop, gun shop, and everybody's going to tell you they're the best, or the guy. Don't even take my word for it. Just go in there and do that sort of stuff, because everybody says my bow shop's the best. They're the best. They're the best. Well, you got to go hear that over and over again, and you're like, okay, they're pretty solid. They're pretty solid.
It's like the same thing with broadheads. We're the best. We're the best. We test this. We do this. We do that. It's like, dude, that's where I'm like, I have 100% confidence. If I had to change careers, didn't matter. No matter what, I'd still be shooting iron wills. You couldn't convince me to shoot a mechanical, period. Like,
Yeah.
I don't care. I get it. There's a lot of them out there. Do whatever you want to do. No bias. I think it's great people shoot mechanicals, but as far as I'm concerned, and the things that I've done in my life, all the dumb things, dude, I will never shoot a mechanical, period. I think it's worth its weight in gold to shoot a legit fixed blade broadhead, because the amount of penetration you can get on an animal at long ranges is, you'll never get it with a mechanical, period. It's just science, like legit science.
So you had mentioned you shot a broadhead into the dirt, and you took that out and shaved your arm. So sharpness is obviously one of those that you visually saw and said, sharpness. That is a huge sale point for you. What were some of those other sale points for you that, and I know you work for the company, so a little biased, but there's a reason for it, why you're passionate about it. What are some of those other major points to say, I'm not shooting anything else, just like what you said. Penetration, go into that. Like what are some of those things that you're seeing, and why you shoot those iron wills?
Yeah, I mean, after doing my own research and doing my redneck engineering, just shooting them into dirt, missing targets,
Yeah.
Having that
On
sharpness,
purpose. Completely on purpose, missing that target.
yeah, dude,
I
yeah.
knew to test the sharpness.
I just moved my rest way too far for one
Yeah.
side.
Yeah.
But like, having something that takes less force to penetrate makes sense. Like, that should be just like, oh, weird. That, yeah, less force to penetrate. Okay, that sounds better than something that takes more force to penetrate, right? So growing up, I was on a ranch, raised Black Angus cattle, cowboy, all that stuff. And I cut firewood all through high school for a living. And when you're splitting firewood, your maul doesn't look like a 3-blade. It doesn't look like anything else. It is a legit single blade. So looking at iron wills, I was like, dude, okay, so that's going to go through bone. Okay. And then Bill's whole thing of like the geometry of the blade, the angles of the blade, the Tonto tip, everything just started to make sense to me looking back at like Native Americans and things like that. I was, well, I'm just going to try it. And that made a huge benefit to penetrate on like a larger animal. So like hunting elk or pigs or anything else, if you have an elk at 80 yards and you can shoot that far, you practice to 100 yards, the animal isn't aware, everything's good, and you shoot that thing and hit it in a rib, scapula, or anything else, you better have a sharp broadhead. Anything dull, it's going to get dull on the hide, it's going to get dull on a rib. And then what's it going to do inside the internal organs? Is it going to cut the tissue? It can stretch it, but that's not going to give you a better blood trail. It's not going to actually like kill the animal efficiently, because you have a lot of microvascular blood vessels that are going to bleed out. Like, surgeons don't use dull scalpels. That's just not a thing that they do. So why would you do that in hunting, right? And just the penetration I've seen on these things, like, I mean, these are small guys, but like literally dude, those broadheads are evil. You pick them up, use them again. We had one dude come to our booth at a show and shot 32 pigs in a season. Same head, same broadhead. So
I've had a hard time with some other cheaper broadheads that are very popular and very popular.
yeah,
You hear them get thrown around quite a bit, and it's like, I had a white-tailed doe bust a tip off the end of that, and or see that the one blade bend, and it's like, okay, that I need I need something better than that. That if that's what I was doing performance-wise there, then I need something else. And the big driving factor for me was it made a lot of sense hearing the discussion around single bevel
Mhm.
and cut on contact. Like if you have a point that has to push through hide first, you just lost penetration. If you, as soon as it's touching, it's cutting. Okay, that makes perfect sense. And then getting a rotation in there to create more cuts. That's not just in the same spot, but it's rotating, creating almost like a hole. That made sense. And then the other thing made sense that, well, if you can go through all the way, you got two holes. Things are bleeding out both sides. Whereas the arrow stuck in there, it would maybe plug that up a little bit. So a lot of cool things with that design, and um, interesting to hear some of the. I suppose you guys are constantly even working still, and we're not getting into the details of the blade, and that's a Bill conversation down the road. But working on the angles of this and that to see what cuts better is fascinating. But it blows my mind how those can be so symmetrical, like how a broadhead manufacturer can make those things to be on a solid piece of metal so symmetrical and perfect when it gets down to the point zeros or whatever grains that it needs to be dead on, dead on.
Yeah. And that's like where Bill, I'm just like, it's amazing, man. That guy's a genius. He's a genius as far as I'm concerned. So his whole everything that he designs, I'm like, yep. Like I said, if I have to change careers, I will still be I don't care. I'll be representing the company forever for what everything that I've seen and done with those broadheads. Even the knives, dude. I did 2 elk, a bear, and a deer in one season and never resharpened the knife. I skinned the bear with our K2, but I used the K1 sharp top, never resharpened it.
Huh.
So if you can think about the broadhead steel and then put that into a knife, it's like the same thing. It's just, dude, you will cut yourself if you touch it. You will cut yourself.
So typically you hear from bladesmiths and things that the duller easier something dulls, that it's easy to get it nice and sharp, but it's going to dull quickly. And so you've got to, by increasing the hardness of the metal, you're able to get a solid edge on there and keep it that way, and get those little micro, almost like a saw blade, the little bird and whatever else. Do those knives and the broadheads take a bunch to get them sharp? Like I would assume since it's a little harder, it takes a little bit longer to get an edge on it, or once you do sharpen it, or because it's holding an edge. So it only makes sense to, like, well, it might take just a touch more longer to get that metal, that hard steel to sharpen. But I don't know, it's just a thought.
And I'm not a bladesmith or anything of that sort, but I've resharpened my broadheads and I've resharpened my knives now after doing all those animals. But like, it's not that, don't use a grinding wheel, learn how to do it by hand. It goes a long way when you can learn how to actually sharpen something on a flat stone or whatever. It's a huge satisfaction to be able to know that you can do that and shave hair with the knife right after. Because if you have good steel and you can do that, that blade's going to stay sharp. Like our knives don't go dull easily. And I don't shy away from bones or anything. I debone all my meat. Like I said, I grew up on a ranch, man. Like I've beat the crap out of my stuff. And that's why I will use Iron Will stuff.
Yeah.
Not just because I work for them.
Yeah.
Like,
Whether you're just looking to stay warm during a hunt or need maximum concealment, the clothing you wear can make or break a hunt. At MidwayUSA.com, we understand hunting clothing has come a long way, with more meticulously crafted camo patterns, advanced scent control technologies, and weatherproof options to withstand the elements. Hunters have to wait until their favorite season, but shouldn't wait on gear. which is why Midway USA offers super fast shipping. When you're ready for your next system, log on to midwayusa.com. Knives, machetes, saws, and shears, multi-tools, shovels, swords, axes, spears, hatchets, and tomahawks. If it cuts, snips, slices, or chops, Midway USA has it. Find great gift ideas in our huge selection of pocket knives and other everyday carry folding knives. Make a statement or create a family legacy with one of our top-of-the-line hunting knives. We've got a great selection of manual and electric sharpeners, too. For just about everything for the outdoors, check out midwayusa.com.
So, moving on to something else, I'd love to hear your story from your elk last year. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. What happened there?
Dude, that was a heck of a year, bro. That was like I said, my string came off my bow going in on another elk, and I had to literally go back, redo everything. And my serving was coming off kind of where my cam around my cam on my main cable. So literally put that thing in a bow press, had to like burn both ends, super glued the serving, and was like, okay, cool. Bear shaft like 3 times, got it, like hit 20 yards, just dead nuts, went out to a like 80 yards, shot a broadhead, and was like, okay, cool, perfect. It's hitting exactly where I'm at. I'm not shooting this bow until there's an animal in front of me. And I was using the 150 grain single bevel wides at that time. So I get back into the field. I find a bull. It is like, oh man, probably 4:30 in the morning. We were there on these elk an hour before first light, and we're listening to them. We're following the herd. We're like a mile off the road. All of a sudden, some dude shows up and starts just Doug Flutie freaking, and he sounded terrible. Well, the elk move off. Pissed me off, but they moved off. Anyways, I'm like, okay, cool. I need to eat some food, whatever. 10 o'clock rolls around. I'm like, I know that there's an old logging road, like, maybe 2 miles up this hill. Let's just try to rally the Toyotas up there, right? We get up there. I see a rub, like a pretty fresh rub. I'm like, all right, let's park right here. We're gonna walk in. Next thing you know, you hear cows mewing. Like, holy shit, are these the same elk? Get in on them. I'm like, I told my buddy to stay behind. And I'm like on this logging road at a pretty steep angle. I'm like, okay, I'm standing at this point. I go to mew, I'm like, oh shit, here they come. Dude, a cow, 50 yards, pins me down, just like death staring me. I'm standing like at the most awkward angle, like, oh shit. And I have a Charlie Brown tree in front of me. She stands there for like, I don't know, like, it felt forever, like maybe 30 minutes. It was probably like 10 minutes. And she runs over, like turns around and starts kind of like trotting away. And I'm like, okay, cool. I get down on my knees. Bro, she turns around and runs back and pegs me again. I'm behind this little, like I said, Charlie Brown freaking tree. And I'm literally facing downhill. I can barely look forward at her. I'm pushing my chin up so I can see forward to see if this cow has moved yet. And that felt like it was a legit half an hour. Anyways, she runs back. I'm like, okay, no more calling. I'm not going to call anymore. I'm just going to use my binos. Dude, I get in, I glass the cows up, and I'm like, okay, cool. The cows are right here. The bull's got to be just past. All right, I'm going to sneak in. Airplanes are flying over. So I'm using the noise of the planes to stalk in. I get into like 20 yards, and I am underneath a pine tree, just covered. I would have had no shot. I'm like, dude, this is the dumbest idea. Like, what am I doing right here? I have no shot angles. So stupid. All right. Okay. So I got to get out of here. I'm like, all right, next plane goes by. I'm going to Tinkerbell, tippy toe out of here. And as soon as the plane, like it had to be a private jet because it sounded pretty low. Dude, I bolted out of there. Like kind of ran back, glass them up. I'm like, hey, they're still there. I go into a little area where they can't see me and literally stripped down. I went all the way to my socks and underwear because where I was basically flat and it was all deadfall. So I had to crawl underneath like basically like a chair. I think the highest thing that I crawled under was probably maybe 2 feet high. So like if you think of like Pixie Sticks deadfall, I had to crawl under it. So this was probably hour maybe 1 to this point where I started crawling back in again. And it took me 2.5 hours legit, dude, to get up to where I could see these cows. 2.5 hours. It was my back, my legs were sunburned. I was dehydrated. I was like shaking. It was gnarly. Anyways, I get in. I'm like, okay, they're right here. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna finally stood up, and 10 feet away on the other side of the rock is a cow facing the other way. I don't know how she didn't win me or see me. And she's just literally just sitting there chewing her cut, happy as can be. I'm like, holy shit, they're right here. They're going to get up. The bull's going to come over, going to scent check them. Everything's going to be glorious. This is going to be epic. That didn't happen. Cows get up. They go away from me. They move down the hill a little bit. The bull is way off. He's like, I don't know. I could see through the thin little aspens. He was like, and I didn't even know how big he was. And he moves off like, I'd say like 65 yards to the aspens. Never really saw his antlers or anything. And I'm like, son of a gun. Well, time goes on. I run down the hill to try and like figure out where they're going and everything. I come up and I'm on this bluff, and there's like a little open area that's maybe like 50 yards by like 40. And I see the cows just go through these aspen saplings. And I'm like, okay, cool. He's down there. I'm going to go below and I'm going to cut him off and I'm going to shoot this thing. I go down there. I'm like in the open. I look to my right. Here comes the bull in the open. If I would have just stayed where I was, I would have shot him at like, 40, 50 yards or something. I'm like, but he would have seen me at this point where I was standing. And I'm like, oh shit. So I had to literally like sprint through freaking thorn bushes, like all those little rose bushes, dude, in my socks, ran up the hill, like all quiet, trying to knock an arrow, get up there. I go, I knock my arrow, and I have like a window of maybe, like seconds to shoot. I drew back. I had probably about maybe 1.5 feet of window to shoot him, and he's walking, and I do a lot of waterfowl, so I was pretty comfortable with the shot. But 40 yards, like I'll never repeat this shot ever again in my life. And like perfectly right through, he was quartering away, went through his ribs, out his front shoulder, complete pass through with our wide single bevel. And he went maybe 10 yards or something, like maybe. I saw him bed down, like dying. And I just went, okay, cool. He's dead. I'm going to go get some water now. So I went back up the hill, got water with my buddy. I'm like dying, like whistling, like my friend by this time, 4 hours later or whatever. I'm like, dude, where are you? Like, well, I didn't know if he was back by the truck. And he's like, bro, shut up. There's a 5x5 bull right here. Like literally 50 yards from us. He didn't even move when I'm whistling. And he's like, shut up. I'm like, no, dude, I got one. Do you have any water? I need water. I don't give a shit. There's an elk there or not. I need water. I'm going to pass out. He's like, why are you naked? I'm like, I got underwear on, dude. I'm like, and socks. Leave me alone. Like, leave me alone. So I'm like, he's like, did you kill one? I'm like, yeah, I got one, but dude, I need water like so bad. So anyways, we go down, we filter some water, and we walk back up there. And dude, my friend's like, are you kidding me? Do you even know what you did? I'm like, I didn't know he was a 6x7. I had no idea. I just couldn't even believe what the heck I shot. But I call that luck more than skill, but there was skill to do it a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, there's nothing wrong with saying that.
No, dude, that was so sunburned. Like the back, okay, so like we're fair skinned dudes, man. So but the back of your legs, like above your kneecap, that's tender, bro.
What altitude were you hunting him at?
Oh, that was like, I want to say close to 10, like maybe 9-8 or somewhere up there. It was high, dude. It was,
yeah, you're up there,
bro. Popcorn fart dry. It was and that's the thing, man. It took me so long. Like literally, there were so many freaking pine needles shoved in. I had like little pimples of slivers in the bottom of my feet, my arm, my forearms, elbows. Like we went fly fishing a couple days after that, and I was pulling like pine needles out of my palms and my forearms from belly crawling.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's awesome. And it's so it's those stinking cows and they pin you down like that just are so like move on. Move
yeah.
on. How do they have the patience to just stare at you for so long? And the stare down that's a rough one to win.
Well, they want to know what it is. Like they're like, elk are a herd animal. So if they hear another one, they're like, "Oh man, I haven't heard that voice before. Who
Mm.
is that? Where are you? Where are you at? Is that Sally? Is that Dana? Like who are you?" And they will do that just to figure it out. But if you don't move and you stay still, it's like looking through a ghost. Like they don't even acknowledge what they're looking at. And it's fascinating that they don't.
Yeah,
Save my ass.
definitely. Um, Shifting gears again, because I'm just when I get guys like you on that got a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I love jumping around and getting all the perspectives because there's a lot there that I want to share with people. But
Yeah.
so you've had a long filming history with Nitro Circus and doing some stuff with them and filming hunts now. Um, and that's a pretty popular thing. People wanna be doing some filming of their own, and some of the main go-tos seem to be just GoPros. What's a decent setup for someone that is just a hobbyist that wants to bring those memories back home and just share with their family? What are those tools of the trade that a average guy could have?
Yeah, totally. I mean, technology's come such a long ways. So, I mean, even iPhones, like it's amazing what you can get with the new like iPhones. Like the 14 to 15 is epic. And then a good GoPro, like the Hero 5 is probably like the lowest end, but like the new ones are sick. You can do 4K, you can do 120, 240, but as an average person, a little tripod goes a long way. Like a tripod, something steady that you can put it on, the ground or somehow mount it to a tree limb, like those little like I don't know, you can flex them and move them and they'll wrap around stuff. But any type of mount that you can use is always nice, but the best part about filming, everybody's going to perceive something different, right? No matter what camera you have, no matter how much money you put into your gear, everybody's going to have a different perspective of what they want, what they see, how they visualize things. So it's really cool to have new people filming stuff because it's a different perspective, right? So not everything that I film is totally perfect because it's from my eyes. So when I get to see other people's work and how creative they are, it actually adds creativity for me. Because even though I've been doing this for my entire life, like bro, I was in Pippi Longstocking. My dad is a cinematographer. He's an Emmy award-winning cinematographer. I was in Pippi Longstocking. Like
Cool.
Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, Kitty Cat from freaking Wedding Crashers, Jane Seymour. Yeah, she's like a second mom to me. I'm a twin. She has twins. Like
Huh.
her ex-husband, James Keach. I've done a lot of things, but it doesn't matter. None of that matters. It matters on people's perspectives and how you perceive things in your filming. Because like my friend Lane Walter, shout out to him. He just did a movie or a film with Derek Wolf. Dude, the guy doesn't really have like he didn't go to school. He didn't have any of those backgrounds, but how he perceives things, regardless of how much money his camera costs or whatever, he's out there filming, doing it, and from his visual perspective is awesome. So whether you're bringing home your videos with an iPhone or whatever, it's just being that own creative person for yourself, and what you want people to see.
Huh. I've shot with Lane
Mart,
a bit in the Alpha Bow Hunting Challenge in Denver when Phil Mendoza was doing that, and that was Lane was always at all of those. and that shop there, No Limits Archery, is that's another one of those bow shops that
Yeah.
they know what's up. They know what's up for sure. But
Marty, one of the biggest reasons that I personally love filming my hunts, I don't film, walk through the woods. Oh, here's some sign. I like filming as they're coming in. I like filming the shots because just like you're saying, different perspective. I can think, oh man, it looks like it glanced back, but then you got instant replay. You can see exactly where that arrow went. I mean, most of the time your arrow is telling you the whole story on where you hit them. Well, there's a whole different story being told when you have instant replay. That's one of the more attractive things that I like about filming it.
Oh, 100%. Like when I go out with Bill and film his hunts, when we do like our broadhead testing and stuff, it's like my face the first day on the job, man. We went to Texas to go test broadheads on hog hunting. My cheeks were sore for like a week, dude, after from smiling so much. Like I hadn't been that happy in a job since like filming Nitro Circus back in the day, and seeing the arrow fly and contacting with those animals and knowing exactly where it's hitting and just the whole beautiful arrow flight and the end result, it's next level. But then again, right, animals move, you can play it back, you can see where things went wrong. So that's like the perfect discovery of learning about yourself, because you learn a lot about your shot execution, animal behavior, and then testing products is another huge thing. But yeah, I think it's great that people film their hunts. It's hard. It's a pain in the ass doing it.
I can't imagine all the editing that goes behind it too. Those wraparound ideas, I never even thought about using that for like actually for filming because I mean most time like if I'm deer stand hunting in Minnesota, I have a stick that I'm propping up just against my stand and making sure not to bump it because that phone falls, that you're done. But getting it all just right, hoping that the deer stays exactly where it's at, moving so slow, and then drawing on top of it. But I'm gonna have to give that wraparound idea a go. Have you ever tried any of like Tacticam's, like the stabilizer mount styles?
I've done some of that stuff for like so back in the day we did Supercross. We did a lot of Supercross stuff. Back when GoPro first started, and dude, we would explode GoPros, like the cards would come out of them and whatnot. So we dealt with a lot of different like gimbals and like GoPro mounts or any type of phone mount or anything. But like now technology has come so far, Mark, that I would recommend buying one of those little movers where you can mount it to a tree. You just get a strap, wrap it around, and then it's basically, I think it's like a silicone or a urethane bushing that are on them, so there's no creak or movement or sound coming out of the tripod or the gimbal arm or whatever. And then you have your your gear head that you can pan tilt or whatever. I got one of those for tree stands because those are worth their weight in gold, because the wraparound, the little clamp deals are great if you want an angle towards yourself, and then for your POV shot, your point of view shot, that's where you want to be able to angle and move. And then if you're using like a smaller kind of like I don't know, like just a smaller like servo kind of lens on your camera where you can use a remote, like a Zoom remote, I would plug that in and have that next to me, and you can zoom in. And I mean, dude, those things are like tiny and they don't cost much anymore. I remember when they were like $500, but it's basically a servo control where you can zoom in and out. And I've seen a lot of whitetail guys use those. Stop, record everything, so you could zoom that camera out all the way, and where that deer is going to come into that area kind of, and then you could have that servo, that little zoom controller right next to you, and all you got to do is punch in, zoom in a little. You can film it in 4K and then digitally zoom in more if you need to. But yeah, those worth their weight in gold.
When you talk about how far it came, like, so growing up cheap farm kid, like I had metal shop class and I took a sheet of expanded expanded steel, and I welded a bolt onto it. And I tried doing that with my bow with just a regular old Kodak camera. Never worked, but like looking at like the technology that you have, like the different options, like you're talking about the servo. I mean, dude, it gets me excited. Not that I'm ever gonna post anything like that or share it, but just being able to have those memories, the footage, and being able to look back at it.
Well, what's even crazier, dude, is that like deer can pick up on that sound though. So you still have to be careful. So when you're
Really?
zooming in, oh yeah, dude, in Texas when we were testing out broadheads, this doe pinned us so freaking hard. And I'm just like, all you just a little bit of that motor. Like the image stabilizer, like I shoot Canon lenses, and so that stabilizer was on, like it just you could hear the motor going in it a little. And I'm like, dude, I got to turn this thing off. Like, what the heck is going on? Because I was using a 70 to 200 to get super close to the animals. And dude, that thing, freaking, that deer looked up at me and I'm like, oh, click, gotta turn that one off. Like, what is this doe doing? They are so high strung in Texas, it's not even funny. So be careful with that. Any zoom, like if your camera's like loud, like turn off all your like record buttons or anything like that. Turn all
Yeah.
that off. Like, and I use manual focus. A huge pet peeve of mine is out of focus. I do it. I screw it up. Sometimes it's artistic, but everybody screws up every now and again. But I turn off autofocus because I hate when the lens will rack back and forth in footage, especially when you're shooting through trees and stuff. It's a pain in the butt, dude. So like using peaking or anything like that. So like I use red or blue in my peaking levels, and then that you can use low, high, or medium depending on which camera you have. But the peaking literally is just a reference, a focus reference, which is huge if you have that and your iPhones don't have it. But
Oh.
that's a big benefit.
Awesome.
I don't even know how to respond because I'm such
Yeah.
I don't do anything but with my iPhone, and I don't even record any of that. Sometimes it's typically just like when I'm hunting with someone else, like I think I'm gonna get this. I think I'm gonna get it, and then I'm looking here, and it's bad stuff. So I'm so far out of that I think that's fascinating, and I'm so thankful for guys like you creating that content because that's what I like to watch. And it's great to see just like you said, the stories and the point of views that have come from that to go from your old school Realtrees and Primos, just a bunch of the same thing, and why is that guy way out front getting video while the bull's right there? That doesn't make any sense. So things have changed and adjust to be more of this is just the hunt, and here's the story of the hunt, and you see a lot. I watched two yesterday where they didn't shoot anything. That was Derek Wolf's video in New Mexico. He had a whole video there, didn't shoot anything, but it was still a cool video. And then another one there, they didn't get anything, and that's just part of the story now. And it's a cool thing that you guys are doing of creating these stories and getting to show what hunting is, and it's more than just 25 kills in 30 minutes, kind of thing. So it's pretty cool and it's not that. That's not really not what hunting is. We're not seeing 200-inch whitetails or 350 bulls around every corner, but it's cool to see the stories and watch that, and get to see. There was a guy I was watching a Pennsylvania elk hunt yesterday, and it's like, oh, I gotta watch that. I would love to see how that would be different. And you got to see some of the terrain and how he was hunting, and it give you a little insight of, well, if I were there, maybe I'd try this, or just how's that different than hunting elk in Colorado. So it's always fascinating, and you storytellers and are great at that. So it's fun to see. So thanks for that work.
Yeah, heck yeah. I mean, you got to be, not every film is going to end with an animal on the ground. So that's like, people showing that they're unsuccessful out there is huge. And I think it's amazing because some people will be like, oh, it's embarrassing. You're an embarrassment because you didn't kill anything. dude, I don't think they understand how hard those people work their butts off. And, we're not all buying landowner tags. We're not all hunting these, just crazy ranches, like you said, the giant 200-inch whitetail. Like the amount of work that goes into it and the amount of effort is huge. So even if you don't get something and you're still showing your videos, I think that's awesome because that's, dude, like you said, we're all learning from these things. And that's how I pick up on a lot of stuff, like going on these hunts and filming it because, I don't want to be the guy to screw up Bill's hunt. Like I would freaking cry if I screwed somebody else's hunt up. Like we're going on a sheep hunt and, I don't know, like, dude, August the 22nd, he's got a sheep hunt and we're going out there to do that. And this is once in a lifetime. So like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be concealed and and I have to respect his hunt. It's his deal. And but I'm gonna try my darndest to freaking get the shot.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was going to ask. What's lining up for the fall? Obviously, Bill's got a sheep tag. What sheep species is that? And where are you guys headed?
So it's a bighorn or Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep. And that will be up kind of in, the western slope of Colorado.
Awesome.
And then I drew an antelope tag. It's kind of a limited draw. I got that hunt coming up before Bill's hunt, so I'm gonna try and get that taken care of, and I'll be shooting the single bevels for that one.
Mhm.
Are you going to be able to get that on camera?
Dude, antelope are so hard to hunt, Mark, that I personally don't like filming my own hunts. I really should, but I want the meat, really. I'm not like a trophy hunter and I feed my family with this stuff. So that's one of the hardest things is like I have a crutch in my personality to be like selfishly like I'm not going to film this. Why did I show anybody this? I don't care. I just want to eat this thing. Like I need the food. I need the nutrition. So I might do it, but antelope hunting is so hard that I don't want to cry in front of everyone. It's a little embarrassing. But no, I'm debating on it, but I probably should. But after that, Bill's got a sheep hunt, and then he's gonna do OTC elk, and then he drew another tag, I believe, in Montana, and I just got Colorado elk. So I'm gonna focus on. And then I'm gonna go on my first whitetail hunt ever. I've shot
Oh, bummer.
blacktail, mule deer. I've shot all different kinds of deer, never whitetail. So I'm gonna go.
Where are you going for that?
I think I'm gonna go Wisconsin, dude. Bill's
Really?
from there. Yeah, Bill's from Wisconsin. They have a pretty generous, like, first time, hunter. And I don't know. I like to try stuff new, and fly out there, get a cooler, rent a van, go to Walmart, buy a vacuum sealer, like debone the things, put them in the vacuum sealer, find a cool area that or like hopefully, some guy, a meat processor that I could be like, hey man, will you throw this meat in your freezer before I leave? And and then fly
There you
home.
go.
Well, that'll be awesome. That's a busy fall and lots of going on a sheep hunt is not as a tag holder. That's got to be pretty rewarding. I've never done it, and I think that'd be pretty fun.
We did 14 miles the other day scouting.
Any good rounds?
That's not this. That's not a flat surface, like Bill's a savage, dude. That guy, he's got some legs under him and he knows what it's going to take and he has what it's going to take. Like he's not just, this brilliant, broadhead manufacturer. Like he lives it. He lives and breathes hunting. And that's why I think he still does it, is because he's that passionate about it. And to get this sheep in this area, to get one is not a high percentage. And he's dude, 14 miles. Like that's not too many people do that. I've seen guys turn their tags in this area and he's not turning his tag in. We're going to get it done, man.
Huh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Marty, we'll let you go here in a sec. But I'd love to hear real quick just where people can find and I don't know how they couldn't find it, but what you guys are working on, and filmed hunts too. Like where can they see some of your work that's hunting related anyway, and get to see some of that stuff, or and the sheep hunt, where's that going to be posted, the kind of thing, and then social media. So plug away.
Yeah, man. So we're, Iron Will Outfitters, YouTube, Instagram. A lot of our footage will be on our website / YouTube channel. So we still have some stuff. Like I use a lot of the footage and photos for our social media. But now that social media is super cool, you can't really show animals, dying there. So we can't really show it there as much, but on our YouTube channel, we'll have that. We'll have all the broadhead testing and stuff. And then I got, GVD Films, Grass Valley Destroyers was our crew back then, but you can watch Nitro Circus stuff from back in the day, like VHS to DVD. We made all those, or at least my twin brother, me, and another buddy, Donnie Anderson. And then gvdfilms.com if you want to see some dumb stuff with, Travis Pastrana and all those guys. But all those dudes, like they still post some of the footage that we've shot. And I mean, triple backflip to quad backflip on a BMX. Like there's so many legendary dudes, but I don't share it that much. Like personally, I have a ton of stuff on my phone, man, and I don't really show it. Like I sent Mark a photo of me standing on a bucket of an excavator getting a shot. He's like, dude, that's gold. I'm like, yeah, I don't really post it to my social media. I don't really care, like Kirby Chambliss. I like been hanging out of a helicopter with that dude doing front flips, and he's in a plane and all that. And it's just like, what? So did you get any photos? No, dude, I don't share that.
Well, that's outstanding. I have a YouTube video channel out there that has one video on it from probably 2007-ish. That was my dirt biking era, and it came from watching you guys do all your stuff. So it's pretty rough video, super blurry. We're just doing average dudes, like, look at that. Look how far we went on that tabletop. That was so awesome.
Yeah.
I think I got a bit of a tail whip on that one. Did you see it? It's just
right? That's how people are. Oh, so you ride dirt bikes? You film Nitro Circus? You ride dirt bikes? I'm like, bro, no, I've like done a backflip on a dirt bike into a foam pit, and no way in hell am I gonna be doing what my friends do, because it's next level, dude. The kids,
yeah.
Travis is one of, I don't know, let's say like 30 people in the US to dislocate his spinal column from his pelvic, and is still doing what he does. Like the kids, dude, he thought I love that guy.
Yeah, crazy cool and talented stuff. Yeah. So, well, Marty, I appreciate your time so much. Don't hang up here. We'll get things posted here shortly, and thanks for your time and your knowledge.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Marty.
To the land, but it ain't my ground. This is God's country.